Hey friends, welcome back to Seeking Our Spirit. This is Brett, and this is episode 56. I got to sit down with an old friend of mine, Caroline Schusterick, and hear about her journey and share some of her story. So I had a lot of fun. I hope that you all enjoy it. As always, best way to support the show is by coming and telling your story. Everyone has a story, even though everyone tells me they don't think they do. But all these folks said the same thing. And so I hope you'll come and share your story with me. You can contact me at seekingourspirit@gmail.com to be on the show, or to give me names of folks that would want to be on the show as well. And to also inquire about spiritual direction and what I offer with those sessions and more about what that is. So hope you'll contact me. Hope you guys keep supporting the show and enjoying it. And we will keep it going. We'll talk to you soon. Peace. All right. Good morning, Caroline Schusterick.
Good morning.
Good to see you. As I was saying a moment ago, it's been a long time, and I'm so excited to catch up with you. We have a past as we know, of course, and have interacted and gone through some of life together. So I'm excited to catch up.
Yes, we have.
Yeah. And I'm excited and want to thank you because just like I'm always harping on people in these shows, like you came forward to say, hey, I'd like to come and tell my story. And I that's what I'm always going for. I'm always trying to get people to do that. So I thank you for doing that. And that's a hint to everybody who listens.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, exactly. So, as always, why don't we just start off and you just tell a quick little bio, tell people who you are, where you're from, what you do,
Sure.
all that good stuff.
Sure. Again, Caroline Schusterick, and I have 3 grown children who are wildly successful, and I am very excited for them. I was a single mom from 2006, 5, 6, and raised the kids pretty much by myself. Um, I have 2 grandchildren, Liam, who is a heart baby. He has tetralogy of Fallot, but he's doing fantastic. And I lived in Knoxville from 1992 until 2020, when I moved down to Bradenton, Florida, and here I am.
Nice. And what's the professional world you're into?
Oh, sure. I started in real estate in 2012 in Knoxville and was wildly successful. And when I came down to mostly with Keller Williams, of course, and then when I came down to Florida, I became a productivity coach with Keller Williams. I was that for 2.5 years, and I absolutely loved it. And I'm now with a different Keller Williams in Florida. I'm in Lakewood Ranch, and I am a market center tech trainer. We're a tech-based brokerage, and I also am a growth specialist. So I help new agents come on and help train them and things like that.
Cool. Excellent. Awesome. Well, as you know, we talk about what do we mean when we say spirituality on this show, and we sort of glean that from people's sort of life story, their spiritual journey, as I say. So when Caroline thinks about spirituality and when you think about that in your life, where does that even start to form? Where does awareness of what that word means even start to form?
So I have always had, and I've told my kids this growing up, I have always had this vision in my head. I want to say it probably started when I was in I had Sierra, my oldest, when I was 21. So it probably started before that. That there is a path that is for me. And I think we all have these paths, and it's light and it's bright. And on the sides of that path will be shadows and darkness, and they will throw rocks in your way. They'll dig holes for you to trip in, and there's lots of stuff on the way. But if you just focus on that light, it will carry you through everything that you need to go through in life. And I consider that light, God.
Yeah.
Jesus, that's the path that I believe that I'm on,
Mm,
is the one, that he's put forward to me, and I can choose to let those sides of my path draw me over there if I want to, but I can also choose to stay on that path,
mm,
and that's where I'll remain the strongest.
So, like, to dig in that a little bit, would you say is that like sort of you feel like there's a sense of of fate or destiny, um, or it's just
I
sort of
just
purpose? There's a purpose in
It's
your
a
life that you
purpose.
have to keep
It's a
trying to.
purpose.
Yeah.
It's a purpose. I love what the position that I'm in right now, because I get to meet people every single day, and I get to help change their lives for the better.
Mhm.
And, when I have people come into my office for recruiting appointments, we're here for 2.5 hours,
Mhm.
just talking about how great life is and what their life path is. And I feel so grateful that I get to be a part of these people's lives and
Yeah.
where they're going.
Yeah.
And, that was really hard for me to embrace that part of who I was for a while, because moving to Florida, all of a sudden, I was not taking care of kids anymore.
Mhm.
There was no taking to high school, there's no shuttling around there, and, I mean, you can call it empty nest syndrome, but I never called it that. It was just all of a sudden I got to be me,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, who's there for me? The Lord, and my light to be in,
Yeah.
and being the person that I know He was.
Yeah.
In the Bible, that's some of my favorite parts in the Bible, is how he loved every single person, and if I get to do that every day.
Yeah. 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 I really identify with you there. And I always say in ministry, I mean, that's part of what I just constantly feel honored to be a part of people's journeys and their stories. It's just so, we a lot of times we don't really know people's story, and it's just really cool to get a sense of that in all these different people's lives. Um, what so I asked you that question. You started at around like 21. So I just want to be sure, like, was there any, like, what do you point to in childhood and growing up? Was there any development of a sense of spirituality, or literally was it just like when you became mom, that's sort of you sort of referenced about that time, like, was that
Right.
where that all came in life?
I was, cradle Episcopalian, baptized Episcopalian, and I was an acolyte, and I was in the choir, and yada, 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 and then we had some things happen in our church, that was back in Reno, Nevada, that caused us to go away from the church, and my parents to kind of look at different ways,
Yeah.
for faith, and we ended up with a different type religion for a little while that I would say pretty much, and that was about when I was 12 or 13 years old, and I was this quirky girl with red hair, glasses, lots of freckles, and I didn't really look like anybody else, and gone through a lot of teasing when I was in, elementary school and stuff, and I was just in a bad spot in that time, and, it wasn't Scientology, I can't remember where my mom took me, but we sat in lawn chairs, I remember that. And I want to say that, um, being there really helped me love myself a little bit at that age, because I think that's such a quirky age to go through anyway,
Yeah.
just trying to figure out what life is. No, now you're 12, 13 years old. So, I wanna say that really helped me, but I've always gravitated back towards, my Episcopalian faith,
Yeah.
just because it lets me be me. There is no, "You have to be this, or you can't come, or you're going to hell. Damn you,
Right.
damn you." I that's what I've always loved about the Episcopalian faith
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much.
But in terms of your kind of internal life and sense of
Right.
spirituality, that you would say that's pretty accurate. It sort of really came in
Yes.
later. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Good. So what else would you name there? So there, if we want to start from there, you
Sure.
yeah, do you
Um,
just have that sense kind of come into your life, and then I understand that's sort of been like a guidepost for you throughout your life as you described. Um,
it was because, getting pregnant before you were married and being 20 years old, it just wasn't my plan.
yeah. Uh,
But, I'll tell you, all 3 kids were. oops, uh-oh, and okay, fine. But I feel very blessed to have all 3 of my children. They are seriously I'm so proud of all 3 of them and where they are in this world that it fills my heart,
Yeah.
to see where they are. Um, anyway, yeah, and
Yeah,
I would
they're great.
say that
One of your children is one of my idols. Yeah, that's
yeah, I know, right,
disc
right.
golf, disc golf
I know
extraordinaire.
he's and those 2 children that and he's such an amazing father on top of it and a great husband, and it just makes me so happy to
Yeah,
see,
yeah.
and they are where they are. So, anyway, and then I got married, and it was just because I was pregnant and, hindsight being 2020, I probably wouldn't have done that, but then you think, then I wouldn't have the 3 kids that I had, so
Mhm.
if I had to go through it all again to have my kids, then I would do that.
Yeah,
But I did have to rely on my faith the whole time through that, just going through that marriage and being a disaster that it was, and it lasted for, like, 20 years, and I have learned so much from that 20 years,
mm,
so much from it, and really during the hardest times when I probably wasn't accessing my faith, the nice thing is when I finally, went, "Hold on, I am God's child. I am here, and I am in this light no matter what." That's probably the only thing that got me through divorce and him moving and me just having the kids and working 4 jobs and making ends meet and the whole thing that I went through there. But that's really the only thing that got me
yeah,
through all of that.
yeah,
Is my faith.
yeah. So, is it fair to say, like, because of the challenges of life, um, uh, y- I mean, I don't want to at all compare
No, you're
motherhood
fine. You're fine.
and this thing to like rock bottom. I'm not trying to say that, but it sounds similar to the narrative of,
Oh,
you know, things were hard, there were
yeah,
challenges, and therefore I had to turn to a higher power, right? Turn.
that's exactly it.
Mhm,
And really, I only find my peace in my higher power.
mhm.
That is really where I find my peace. There are days, even today, when I have to go sit in my car and just go,
Yeah, yeah,
I look at all the light around me, the beautiful plants around me. I mean, that only comes from one place. I mean, you might plant a plant and fertilize it, but
right.
seriously.
Well, and there is an interesting aspect of, and perhaps I say this a lot, but like, I find, especially in the Western world, in America, like where we're so, most people don't even know how fortunate and blessed they are because they've never really seen other contexts, and so I find that actually negatively affects our faith and our spirituality because we sort of, I think a lot of us grow up. I don't think anyone would ever say this, but I think a lot of people grow up sort of internally behaving as if they're God and they don't need God, right? Like we're
Right.
our own God, and it takes something drastic to sort of bring you to your knees before
Mhm.
you sort of turn and go, "Oh, I need
Wait
help.
a minute.
I have to
Yes.
surrender. I have to,
Right.
depend on something bigger."
Well, and I will tell you one of the things I that I leaned on when it was time for me to really just stand up and say, "Okay, yes, I need you," is I got to do that by myself. I
Mhm.
didn't have to be in front of anybody to admit what I was going through and take accountability for what I was going through, to be, sort of embarrassed by that, or maybe not wanting to if there's one thing that I can tell all the things to, it's him,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't have to tell everybody else about it. Does that I hope that makes sense, but
Yeah, sure, sure, sure. Yeah. Okay, so, you sort of, you become mom, you're in this situation in life, you're realizing in life that you can't do it alone, and so you're accessing
yeah.
God and depending on faith. So tell me more. Tell me the next step, or what happens next, or
Well, after having the kids by myself and I was doing landscaping, I do flowers for weddings. I just did all the stuff to try to make ends meet just for the kids. And my focus was just on raising the kids. Really wasn't on me. I mean, I went on a date here and there, but other than that, not really. And and so what happened in 2000, what was that, 10? Is I met somebody, got married, and got divorced just as fast as I could. And you were very much in that. That was an oops and an uh-oh, which I thought it wasn't. But then I'll tell you one of my biggest spiritual journeys that I just will never forget. And I tell this story a lot. I was working for a retail store and I had been there for 3 years and I was doing very, very well. My department was the top, the whole thing. And I had a big client base that came into this retail store. Well, the managers didn't really like it there. They wanted me cash and carry. And so things led to another and I was let go. First time I was ever let go in my life. And that didn't go over well with me, but that's okay. Um, and I was teaching with Father Rob the Alpha courses. Right after my divorce, I got involved with Alpha and loved it, created some fantastic relationships that I still have
Mhm.
those relationships. And I was at the church a couple Sundays ago with my parents, and there's most everybody, right?
Yeah.
And it's just anyway. So then I helped teach a couple of more alphas, and with Father Rob, I was one of the people who met, group leader. What I can't remember what they called it.
Yeah.
So I was at the the church and meeting with all of the people that were in the Father Rob and Alan and all the people that were there and planning on where we were going to meet and how the next class was going to go.
Mhm.
And I had not gotten my pink slip from this retail store. And so I wasn't getting any unemployment. Trying to apply for a job, it was all over internet. There was no go in, fill out your application and meet the manager. It was all over. And I'm a mom, I can do a PTO, I can do a fundraiser, I can do all those things for you. And if we meet, we're probably good to go. However, on paper, I didn't look like that
Yeah.
much for somebody.
Sure.
So I I really needed that unemployment check because I only had Elena, my youngest, at home. The other two were gone. So I walked out to my car after the meeting and my phone rang. And it was from the HR person for this retail company that is based in North Carolina. And she said, Caroline, she goes, you haven't logged your hours for 3 weeks. She goes, are you on vacation? Because if you are, it wasn't put in the system and you had 3 weeks of vacation. I need to make sure you're paid, the whole thing. And I told her, I said, they let me go. And she said, what? She goes, well, I'm getting your job back. And I said, no, I really don't want my job back. After all this, I really don't want it. And she said, well, if you ever need it back, she goes, we as a corporation know how well you did and we would like you back. And she goes, I'm sending you 4 weeks of vacation. I'm FedExing it in a check. And I said, can you send me something saying I was let go so I can get my unemployment too? And she goes, it's done. And she FedExed it to me. However, that day, I kind of lost it. I'm sitting in the car and I was at a breaking point, just at a breaking point because my parents were buying us groceries. I mean, no, I was not getting any child support. It was just
Yeah.
too much. Put my seat back because I didn't want them coming out of the church and seeing me. Opened my sunroof and I finally said, listen, you up there, we need to have a come to Jesus with Jesus. You know, what is going on? What do I need to do? I mean, I just want to help people. I will scrub toilets. I will do whatever you want me to do. Lead me, guide me, give me a sign. You didn't put these children in my life for me not to be able to take care of them. And that's really all I want to do is provide for my family.
Mhm.
Tell me what I need to do. Um, Literally a week after, Elena's softball coach came to me and said, Caroline, my mom is an HR director for this engineering firm and they need somebody to answer the phone for 2 weeks. And I'm like, done. Okay, tell me where to go. When do I show up? So I did that for 2 weeks, and she came down to me the day before I was done with that and said, "Caroline, please tell me you have a degree in something. We just wanna keep you here. We love having you. We wanna keep you here." And I have a degree in being a mom
Yeah.
and running PTOs and PTAs and planting containers and doing flowers.
Which
That's
should
what I do.
count, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but it I
It
wish it did.
should count for a lot.
I know, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So she said, "I want you to talk to my friend Linda Russo over at Keller Williams." So I had a 3.5-hour conversation with her. They wanted to hire me for the front desk, which really didn't work because it had me working on the weekends. And whereas Elena still is with other parents at softball things, and she just didn't have,
Mm.
and that was not good for her. She needed her mom to participate in her world. So met with Holly McCrae, and she gave me an application that was this thick. And sooner or later, I was answering phone calls for her real estate team while I was getting my license online, and got my license in November of 2012. At the end of it, had my first closing January 13th. And I'm still in touch with my first client. I actually ended up selling them 4 different houses. They'd move, they'd sell, they'd move, they'd sell, they'd move, they'd sell. And I sold 42 homes that year.
Mhm.
And went on the rest of my career there to sell almost 400 homes in Knoxville. And all of that was, and I do that a lot in my coaching of agents, is because I was always in abundance, and my faith has helped me stay in that abundance. Even when there wasn't abundance, I was able to just sit down and go, look at what's been provided for me
Mm,
and given to me. Here it is.
mm.
Um,
Say more about that, about abundance, and yeah, just say more about that.
So when you operate in lack in anything you do, you are not coming from the heart. You are not in it for the heart. And I am in this career to help people. That's all I want to do in this world is help people get somewhere that they want to go, and also help them think that they can probably do a little bit more than that. They just don't believe in themselves.
Mhm.
And when you act in abundance, you come from the heart, and you come from sincerity, and you come from a servant's heart as well.
Mm.
Um,
So would it be, so if I put that in my own words, like,
sure.
are we saying when we are acting out of, it sort of reminds me of, like, not to dumb it down to this level, but like
It's okay.
the um kind of the path of positive thinking, right? Like a little
There you
bit,
go.
like manifesting, like, if we're operating out of a sense of scarcity and desperation and need, and then we're operating out of fear. And in a
Right.
lot of ways, when people operate that way, there's a lot of like self sabotage. There's a lot of just negativity. Nothing's going my way. Of course, this is
Oh,
going to
yeah.
be the way it goes to me.
And it is a dark, deep hole that you can get into. And when you get into those, I find it so easy um, in life to get down those dark, deep holes lately.
Mhm.
Very easy,
Yeah,
for whatever reason that is. And I will tell you, it is a daily struggle still for me to not be in that hole,
yeah,
to constantly reach for the light. And
yeah.
that's where my little analogy of the thing is I just imagine myself, and I believe in affirmations, and I believe in visualizing. Um, and I absolutely visualize myself the minute I get up in the morning. I visualize myself. I do a meditation in the morning. 5 minutes is all, but still it's enough. And of me walking down a path of light.
Mhm.
And that really helps me to get where I'm going. And if I need a conversation where I need to vent, I call my brother, Chris, I call my brother a lot. I don't know what I'd do without him. But there are times when it's rough,
Mm.
even in still. But if I don't have that faith, and if I don't have that
Mhm.
light and life,
Yeah,
I cannot get through this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it's a fascinating conversation to me, just even that idea. It's I don't know. I don't want to get us down into a whole other rabbit trail, but it's
Okay.
like it's people start to talk about that kind of thing a lot of times in terms of a conversation around like whether or not they believe in a God, from sort of
Right.
like a philosophical standpoint, like does God exist?
Correct.
Sort of Pascal's wager, right? Famously,
Right.
sort of
Hmm.
says, even if there isn't a God, you should act as if there is because
Right.
why not, right? Like life is better,
Right.
you're better,
Right.
and if there is in the end, then great, and so that's a really
Well,
cold way to look at it, but it's very interesting in terms of what you're saying, in terms of how we operate in life, because yeah, if we're constantly looking for the negative, and we know as humans that we're designed to sort of notice patterns. So if we're
right.
training ourselves to just notice the negative all the time and poor me, and of course the universe wants to keep
Oh,
kicking me, then it just cycles. But if we are training ourselves to notice, hey, the light is on my path, right? I'm on this path, that,
yeah.
that, that any door or window that opens, as small as it is an
Go.
affirmation, right? Go.
Yeah.
Then that builds on itself. Yeah, yeah, and can be a
Correct.
yeah, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I want to say too, just for people to know, so because you
Mhm.
referenced your brother, so Caroline's brother, Chris Douglas, has been on the podcast as well. So if you haven't
Yeah.
heard his episode, go hear that. And I'll just name two, and we can pick right back up where we were. But
Sure.
it's interesting for me, or just a nice story that when I was doing your marriage is when I
Hmm.
met your brother. That was the
Yeah.
first time I met him, and he didn't seem to be a fan of me at that moment, and it was interesting. And then it's just sort of a beautiful thing because now he's I count him a very close friend, and one of my favorite people on the planet,
Yeah.
and I just
Mine
think
too.
I think that's just such a funny little cool story because
It is. It is. It is. Yeah.
so
I would tell you that it was probably 10, 15 years ago. I wouldn't tell you I was be as close to my brother as I am now. But I'm so grateful to him because, Elena lives in his house and a big playroom on the side. And she's really gotten some fantastic support and male role model in her life.
yeah.
And I'm forever grateful for him for that. And just because he picks up the phone when I call.
Yeah, great soul for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
So we go on and I go through, real estate, and I get to meet people and meet families. And the way I was successful is because I meet one family, and then their parents needed a house, and then the brother needed a house, and then the sister needed a house, and then, oh, well, mom and dad need to downsize. Well, we sell that house. I mean, it just went on and on like that. And I still have people who reach out to me down here
mhm,
and need houses and need help up there. And I've got a couple agents that I refer people to up there. And sooner or later, I will get my license is in retirement there. I have a Florida license. I've done maybe about 10 deals because they just land in my lap. But this is my focus right now, is working with people and helping people find a way to put their lives to where they want to be.
mhm,
And I meet person after person after person. It doesn't matter what age either, that want to make a difference in this world. And, money's only good for the good that it can do.
mhm,
So, and I've met a lot of people who are that way, which is fantastic. So anyway, I get on, and we get to let's see, late 2018, and I meet Steve, um, who I did not expect to come in my life whatsoever, but he did, and we had a pretty great life. Um, He loved my kids. My kids loved him. He and Elena are still really close. Um, and he didn't really like living in Knoxville. He and his ex-wife had moved to Knoxville, and they didn't really like it. So we had gotten close enough that about a year and a half after that, I moved in with him. And then we were together in that house for about 6 months. And it was COVID, in the middle of COVID, and he lost his job. And he said, "Let's go to Florida. I wanna be by the beach." And I went,
Mm.
let me talk to my kids." And, got their blessing, and then also right around that time when we made that decision, I found out I was gonna be a grandma.
Mm.
So, at the time, we didn't know what that was set in front of us, and, I was and that was the whole goal is if we're gonna move to something like that, if I'm gonna move to something like that, I have to be a plane ride, a day's drive away. I cannot be that far away because he was from San Diego and was thinking about going back there, and there's just no way, that's too
Mhm.
far away. Um, anyway, we ended up in Bradenton, and, then in November, the pregnancy was going okay for Will and Trish, and then the baby wasn't growing. So, she went to a specialist, and that was to watch your kids, and I'm very close to my daughter-in-law, go through that is just
Mm.
what they had to go through with all of this. Um, and then, I mean, you say all you can do is pray, but really, is that all you can do? Isn't that what all you're supposed to do? But it was anyway. Liam had tetralogy of Fallot, which is 4 different problems with your heart, and they thought that he was going to be born blue because the oxygen was not in his blood. And I went up for the baby shower, which was in Nashville, where all their friends were. They had moved to Dalton so that Will could have a factory for the disc golf, and it's going back a little bit, but anyway, we went up for the baby shower, and when she picked me up at the airport in Chattanooga, and I drove up with her and a friend for the baby shower in Nashville, and I was going to stay with Sierra, who was living in Nashville, and she didn't feel so hot. She hadn't felt the baby move, and I had her stop, and I got some French fries. I'm a French fry fanatic, and a Coke, and I made her have some to see if we and walked around the parking lot to see if we could get him to move. And, so very long story short, we went to dinner that night. She didn't eat. We went to her favorite ice cream place. She had some of that, but she ended up in the middle of the night going to the emergency room at Vanderbilt. Now, they were already set up at Vanderbilt because they knew Liam would need NICU when he was born. They just didn't know to what extent. So, basically, we had a very emotional baby shower without her. That night, Will had finally come up. Will thought she was gonna get out of the hospital, everything was fine, but she ended up staying. Um, um, we brought her some food that night. Will came up pretty late. He was doing a disc golf tournament in Chattanooga at the baseball field there, and, then the next morning, they had her on monitors and up this way and the other way, and, I went and got Will a bunch of food. I mean, you've met my son, he's about as big as a stick and 6 foot tall, so went and got him some food, a charger for him, his computer that he forgot, and my flight was supposed to leave that evening. Gave it to him, hugged him, called him before I got on the flight to say, "Is everything okay? Do you want me to stay?" "Well, mom, what are you gonna do?" Well, it was COVID, they would not let me in the hospital. And I said, "I'm gonna sit in the parking garage, and I'm there if you need me." And, anyway, "Mom, just go, it's okay, just go." So I went, landed, and you land in St. Pete here. The Sarasota airport doesn't go to Knoxville or even Nashville. I left from Nashville, and Steve picked me up, and we drove through Bradenton, and I was starving, and nothing's open in Bradenton at 10 o'clock at night. So it's a beach town. So got home, um, called, nobody answered. No, I think I called and I think Will answered. This was a while back and said, everything's fine. So I had was taking a shower, my phone died. And in the middle of the shower, Steve came and got me and said, "Listen, Sierra's trying to call you. You've got to get on your phone right now." Called. And only called Trisha's sister, I think is who I called, and she wasn't there either, but she said, they lost the heartbeat. She's been taken to surgery. Get a call from my son, and he's panicked, totally panicked. They took her, mom. They took her. And I'm just sitting in the room and there's nothing here. They took her. We couldn't find the heartbeat. Oh my God. Oh my God. They took her. I don't know. And I said, okay, buddy. Okay. We're just going to breathe and we're going to pray and we're going to breathe. Mom, here they come. Here they come. Got to go. So the whole time I sat there with my eyes closed, just come on, Lord, come on, come on, come on. I'll give you my heart. Just come on, come on, just come on. And that prayer I had probably the next 7, 8 months every day.
Mm.
Whatever you want from me. This kid is supposed to be here for a reason. Please, please. And so he was born, and Will calls me, and the first thing he says is he's not blue. I'm like, oh, okay, buddy, what else? And he was 1.5 pounds when he was born, went down to 1.2. Had open heart surgery. That was November when he was born, November 7th. And then he was had open heart surgery in January
Little guy.
because they put a stent up, it wouldn't hold. They tried to put a balloon up, it wouldn't hold. There was no part of that heart was there. So they went in and did that. And then he was on an ECMO machine, which takes your blood, cleans it, puts it back in you. Well, little ones like that can only be on it for 7 days. So when they took him off, it was just a constant. I didn't go into the office that day, and I sat at home just with my eyes closed, just talking to God.
Mm.
And here we are. He's going to be 4 in November,
Yeah.
and he's still missing a part of his heart. But Brett, it'll put me into tears. He's such a love. Oh, and to think that he doesn't have, I told Trisha when I was there last time, I said, so when they finally give him this piece of the heart, he goes and he goes and he goes and he runs and he plays, and you would not think
Mm.
that there's not a thing
Mm.
and any hurdle that he's going to have to go over anymore in his life.
Yeah.
Because I think he's perfect. I don't think there's anything wrong with him.
Yeah.
Wow. He's just my precious love.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who tells me that they don't have a faith or they don't believe in God, sit down, let me tell you about Leah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's such a hard thing in terms of like a broader conversation about those things, because that's not always the way it turns out, right?
No, it's not. And I have heard other stories, and I hear them without anybody knowing my story
Right.
or our story. It's not just mine, it is our family story.
Right.
It's mostly Will and Trisha's. And I will tell you, in the selfish part of this, I felt like I saw something online that's, you feel like there's an invisible rope with your hands tied behind your back during this, because I couldn't go sit with them or bring them a sandwich or just give them a break, because they had rented an apartment across the street so that they could both go take a nap
Yeah.
or a shower.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything. And my parents, and they don't know how to not do anything. And that's how I was raised.
Yeah.
To try and make things better.
Mm-hmm.
But again, there you go. All you can do is pray. Well,
It's that surrender again. I mean,
yeah, it's
yeah,
that. And it was such a surrender.
yeah. Yeah. And I hesitate to even say this because I don't want to go dark, but it's like in terms of like people's faith journeys, you just imagine if that hadn't been the outcome, what does that do to one's faith?
And you live with that fear. We all lived with that fear
Mm-hmm.
in the back of your mind. But I also brought in my, I hate to bring it up again, but abundance feeling.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be here. He's going to make a difference in this world. I just know it. And from the minute that she was pregnant, I always felt like I had a spiritual connection with this little boy.
Mm.
Um, I just felt that I had this sixth sense, if you want to call it that he's supposed to be in this world.
Mm.
He's supposed to be here. And it was very hard not to let my mind go to the other.
Yeah. Yeah. It strikes me like, I don't know, just maybe as a theme or something we do, but I, those prayers of like desperation,
Right.
are, um, well, I'll just speak for myself. Like when I'm in
Sure.
that place and I go to the sort of those the prayer for me, the prayers of desperation are very different from the prayers in my life when things are going well.
Absolutely.
I mean, one, there's the dynamic of like some people would maybe say they don't pray at all until it's like a foxhole prayer, right?
Right.
But then,
We don't look for God unless we absolutely.
right, right. But then also, I would say the quality or the characteristics of my prayer in those circumstances are different. And I would say for me, when I'm talking about a prayer of desperation, it's much more, um, I would use for me, I'm not using this for anybody else. It's like more immature prayer or immature faith.
Mhm.
It really is like, God, just get me out of this. Or God, like I think of the way that I pray for my children when I drop them off at school. It's very much just like surround them, protect them, God, like,
Right.
and it's very
Right.
different than the way I pray normally. So I don't know. I just think that that's an interesting, but it's so heartfelt and it's so
Yes.
real.
Hmm.
Like
It
you're
is.
really there in that moment. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just naming it, but
No.
um, what
Yeah. No.
I want to, it's gosh, our time has gone so fast already. I want to ask you,
Yeah.
um, like, so would you say, you've named the abundance mentality in prayer, you've named actually all throughout. So like, is that your main, would you say, relationship with prayer? Do you have other prayer practices? Do you pray in other ways?
I would call my meditation a thankful meditation, and it's my conversation with God, thanking me for having a path for me, and thank you for being the what holds me up.
Hmm.
Um, and thank you, for the people in my life, because I don't believe that people are in your life for an accident. I just don't.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think people are put in your life on purpose.
Hmm.
I think some people come and you're like, yeah, bye. So you can exit out. But I do believe a lot of people come into you. I believe that you are what you attract.
Hmm.
And I mean, this is going to go even deeper, but I believe that God puts in your life people who you need and people who need you.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because it just shows up,
Yeah,
you
would you say
know.
that's a big part of your story? I mean, so like you're connecting to something I say all the time in these shows, right?
Yeah,
The languages that God uses to speak to us, and one of them is, I've seen in people's stories, people. It's other people.
yeah,
So they experience God
people.
in the people that are placed in their lives. So is that a theme for
Right.
you?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely a thing. I can be in just having a bad day, which we all have, right? And
No.
I know, right? And the abundance is forced of, I have a roof over my head, I have gas in my car. I mean, you pull it from the depths. And then somebody shows up in your world and you're just like, okay,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
breathe. And when that happens, I just take a big deep breath and say, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's a
Thank you.
beautiful perspective on our spiritual lives as well, because I think at least in the Western world, or maybe I should just speak for myself because I'm this way, we can think that spirituality is individual or it's just between us and God. And certainly there is that aspect, but
Yes.
I think there's something really beautiful about the people that experience God through others, because it just drives home that idea that like we can't do this alone. Um,
No.
and both, we can't do this alone without God, and we can't do this alone without other people.
Right.
Um, And I think
Right.
that's a beautiful thing. Would you say, I mean, that obviously sounds like kind of one of the main ways you see God operating in your life. What are there others? Are there other ways that you've experienced God, quote unquote, speak to you? You know,
This is gonna sound really, really odd.
I like it. Bring
But
me
when
out.
I love to garden, I love to be in the garden and plant things, and I love to see things bloom. I really see the beauty and in how all that happens. Um, and I can see a plant that's, dying, and then when I love on it a little bit and give it some fertilizer and cut some stuff back, and then it comes back and it's this big and and it's blooming and it keeps blooming and blooming and blooming. I see that. So in Florida, we have lots of little lizards, little ones. We don't have the big iguanas ones here, thank
Yeah.
goodness. We have these little ones. And And we have an enormous amount of odd birds here. I remember watching a video before we moved down here, and she's like, "And there are Jurassic birds," and there are.
Yeah.
And it seems like whenever I am in my peace and I'm in the yard and I'm working, I find that the lizards, the odd birds, the other parts of nature surround me.
Mm.
I mean, I was working the other day and I think they're ibises. They've got these gigantic orange beaks. There was a whole flock of them in the yard right behind me. And I thought, okay. And for a long time, there was a lizard who lost his tail. And I would be working in the yard and I'd turn around and he'd be on like the little shovel I had,
Yeah.
or he'd be in the box I have that I've got the weeds going into, and he would just hang out.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
I know that sounds kind of quirky, but
No, that's cool. I just as long as you're not calling in the alligators. That's you don't want
oh,
the
no. You know what? I've been here 4 years and haven't seen one yet.
nature's cool and being connected to creation is cool, but yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's I and, we go sit at the beach, and I watch the pelicans, and then the dolphin we had a whole pod of dolphins that were 10 feet off the beach the other day, and I am not a beach person. The beach there's sand drives me nuts, but watching the birds and the wildlife, and I'm sorry, but that's God to me.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the light to me. That is and to watch how they all get along. You've got the dolphins and you've got the birds and you've got a sandpiper and you've got the darn seagulls, which I drive me nuts because 'cause they'll take food right out of your hand. But, I mean, and
Sure.
they all get along.
Well,
They're
and
all eating fish and diving for fish and doing their thing, and to me, it's an inspiration almost.
mhm,
That's the way the world really works,
mhm.
is because things get along, and,
That's
there
interesting.
might be little fish that the dolphin eat, but still it's all a whole ecosystem that gets along together, and I think follows I don't know, but
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, yeah, like from that aspect, I don't know, maybe I'm stretching too much, but you can bring it back to that sort of sense of a path, right? There's a
yes,
sense of an order, even if that's messy. And there's,
right.
and so that's interesting. That's an interesting angle on that. The creation thing and connection to creation is, in nature in particular, is a um, language I would say that a lot of people name that they experience God in creation, and I think it's one of those angles that we are really lacking in because just
Mhm.
again just like that what we named earlier where we're tempted to believe that it's just us and we can do this all on our own. It's the same with creation. We're tempted to think we're separate from it, but we're a part of it. Now, obviously, folks who live in East Tennessee or live in places where there's a lot of nature, that's much more, it's around us all the time.
Right.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine living in a massive city where you really are separate from creation and what that does to you.
Well,
Um,
we are sort of, kind of, so I've been this is a squirrel, feeding a feral cat. We thought it was somebody else's cat, so we trapped it in a live thing, and it wasn't their cat, but he keeps coming back, and he's very skinny, so I just leave it's my perfect cat. He comes at night, he doesn't like humans, and he stays in the yard, so 'cause I'm really allergic to them. But watching him in our Ring camera, what else this has done? The most beautiful fox came and ate the rest of his food the other day.
Mm.
The tail was so long, and then it's okay. The raccoons come, and it's just
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Creation in general, the beauty of it for
yeah,
sure. What is that?
yeah.
Is that so that's another one you name. Anything else you name? Or just because I don't want to cut your story,
No, you're good.
are there other parts of your other events
Well,
in your life?
to name another thing where I see God and I experience God is when we go to just the grocery store, the most random people will just start talking to me like they've known me forever.
Mhm.
And st I'm on call. No, I'll be done in just a minute. Okay. And, sorry.
All right, for folks
And
listening, yeah, Caroline's at work, so there's
yeah,
interruptions.
well, that's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
They can wait a minute. They
yeah.
got me all week. Um, so, people come up and randomly talk to me,
Mhm.
and literally out of nowhere, Steve will go, "Do you know them?" And I'm like, "No." And they want to talk about how beautiful something is, how awesome ice cream is at Ditweiler's, which if you not have been down here and been to Ditweiler's, it makes Alan Douglas in euphoria. It's all like a big farmer's market. It's amazing. But how good the ice cream is, or how crazy it is that Publix I'm in is so different than the other Publix down the street, and she can't believe that they don't have green beans there. I mean, I have people that come up to me randomly and just start talking, and if it happens every time literally every time we go to Costco, we're
Mm,
going to Sam's, the grocery store, wherever, that happens all the time.
mm.
And I feel like that sometimes I just go, okay, God, I got it."
Yeah.
You know? Um, and again, you tracked what you put out there, and if that's it, great. But I just feel like it's a privilege to be able to be that to other people. It's an absolute privilege, and I believe that's God.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think a lot of people really struggle, especially people who try to take their faith seriously, right? They struggle with like, well, what can I really do? Right? Like how can I really spread this message of love, help
Right.
spread hope, help change the world for better? And it's hard because what you end up having to do, which I do think is powerful, but you have to end up focusing on those moments that you're naming.
Right.
Like there are
Well,
people who are put in your path every single day, and you have a choice about how do you treat them, how do you receive them, and there's so much loneliness and so much separation and so much,
gosh.
so how do how do you learn to be conscious enough in every moment of every day to pay
I
attention to those moments and
and
then
I feel like it's my responsibility to be that way.
mhm, mhm, yeah,
I feel like I am very blessed to be where I'm at and to look at my kids. I mean, they did not face a life to be the way they are.
mhm,
We just didn't.
yeah,
And to see how successful Sierra is and the boyfriend that she's got right now is fantastic. And to see Elena be where she is after all she's been through, and to see it's just, I just feel like I God gave me the gift to love other people,
mm,
and I'm not gonna take that for granted
yeah. Well, and I
at
think
all.
part of what I'm saying too, though, is I would wonder. I mean, it's sort of a thought experiment, but if you didn't have that sense that you've named in
Right,
terms of your spirituality of like, there's a path or there's a
right,
light on my path and it's guiding me, and that sort of forces you to be open to the opportunities around you and the interactions around you.
right.
So if someone
Mhm.
isn't living in that sort of mindset, are they um, open to receiving the people that come across their path, or are you just, you know what I mean? So it's a very interesting
Right,
question. It's like,
right. It is and it's interesting to think about too because, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, sure. No, I know it's unanswerable, but I just think,
I mean, it is unanswerable, and I know what I can do, and I know that I have, I used to think of it, there's some people that think of that as a burden,
mm,
you know? People will say, "Well, I can't believe that, you were so nice to this person or that person," or, whatever. I don't get a lot of that now, but I used to have a lot from one person can think that somebody's annoying,
yeah, sure.
and I can seek first to understand and sit
Mhm.
down and say, "Why? What has happened to you in your world that you're that annoying?" But I don't ask that question. You ask other questions to get there because that's an awfully bold question to ask, right? But, what can I be in your life to I started in this position, a month ago, and I already have 8 people that I have accountability
Mm,
meetings with because, they want me to help hold them accountable for
mhm,
what they're doing in business, but it's also become in life,
mhm, mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Um, what I'm mindful of time here, and so I want to
yeah,
make sure I ask the ending question, at least that I
the
ask
ending
everybody.
question.
Well,
Mhm.
so if you haven't named it already, when you think about the most clear or powerful moments that you've experienced God in your life, um, do you have one that sticks out? Just the clearest like experience
Yeah.
of God.
I would say holding Liam for the first time. Um, Going up there knowing I got to meet him and he was, what, 7.5 months old, but looking at this tiny little human who has already been through so much and looking at him smile with an oxygen tube and a feeding tube and all the things, and just getting to hold him. I will never, ever forget the warmth in my body when I held him,
Mm,
when I when he smiled at me. I mean, I don't I'm I'm speechless, which is not me, um, because that was it,
yeah,
to
that's good.
see what God did to make him strong enough
Mm,
and to make my kids strong enough to go through that. I mean, Trisha just had another sweet little nugget in our life, and that's also another blessing, she's beautiful and she got through go through a regular pregnancy and got to experience all that stuff and nursing and the whole bit because you couldn't do that with Liam because he was born at 27 weeks.
mm,
So, yeah, Liam,
yeah, yeah,
when I
that's
got to hold him the first time, and every single time I get to see him and he runs to me and says, "Grandma," every single time that same feeling comes back to me.
yeah. It makes those little things you don't take them for granted because of
No,
surrounded it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Awesome. Well, anything else that you would name about spirituality for Caroline? Anything else that you didn't get to touch?
Not that I can think of. It
Yeah,
just I've never been a big believer that if you aren't in church,
sure.
you're not following God's path. I've never been a big believer in that, but I will tell you that there are times, the little Episcopalian church that's on the island, that is one thing, that is on my list to put back in my order is going back to church, even if I go once a month. And then there's a big right up the street from me Episcopalian school that's also a church. And when we were during COVID, I had called the pastor and asked him if I could just go sit in the church where I
Mm,
could have some peace and quiet. And even today, when I walk into Ascension, that that big oval stained glass above the sanctuary,
mm,
it always grabs me, and I can just go through a service when I was with my mom and dad last time, and I just stare at that,
mm.
and it just there's something about being in the actual church that just
Hmm.
makes me feel comfortable. It's like putting a blanket on me.
Mhm.
So, anyway,
Yeah, it gets back to needing others and needing
yeah,
community, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it does. It
Cool.
does.
Well, anything else? Last chance.
Nope,
Okay,
not that
okay.
I can think of.
Awesome. Well, it's been great to catch up with you, Caroline. Haven't got to see you
Absolutely.
in years and years, so this is a treat for me. And like I said,
Me too.
I really appreciate you reaching out on your own and connecting and saying, "Yeah, I'll come and talk." So yeah, I thank you for that, and maybe we'll do it again. And prayers on your family and
Oh,
continued
thank you.
blessings. It's you guys been through a big journey, and I'm thankful
We
that
have.
it's turned out the way it has. That's beautiful.
Well, it's yeah, yeah. I'm not, and yeah, it has, and I'm grateful for it every single day.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Well, I'm gonna hit stop and say bye to you here in a
Okay,
second, but thank you so much again, and we'll
you're
catch
welcome.
up with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.